I'm not sure how I ended up back here, back in this basement, but here I am. You ever feel like life's kind of been on a loop, like no matter how hard you try, you always end up back where you started? Yeah, that's me right now. I can't lie, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me. I mean, it's not like I'm out on the streets, right? But it's weird, it's frustrating. It feels like I've been trying to find my footing for years, only to end up back at square one. Mark's always been the golden child, the one who made it, built a business, started from scratch, worked his ass off, and actually got somewhere. And then there's me. I'm not bitter about it. It's just a fact. He figured it out. I'm still here, back in my parents' house, in the basement, trying to figure out what went wrong. I moved back in recently. I didn't have many options, honestly. It felt like a step back, but I didn't see a way around it. The basement? Not terrible. It's kind of private, which is what I needed. It's got a kitchen, a bathroom, a bed, and even a TV with all my old games. So yeah, it's not the worst setup. But let's not kid ourselves. It's not exactly where I imagined I'd be at 30. It's not where I thought I'd be when I started trying to figure my life out. You know, when I had some vision of where I was headed, what I was doing. I guess some of those things just don't turn out the way you think they will. Anyway, that's where I am now. And maybe in some way it's not so bad. But I can't shake the feeling that I'm stuck in the same place I've always been, trying to get out of my brother's shadow. It came out of nowhere, this storm. You know the kind. The one that feels like it has something personal against you. The wind slammed against the windows with a force that rattled the entire house. And the rain, God, it was like the world itself was being torn apart. I couldn't even hear my own thoughts over the chaos outside. It was loud, really loud. The kind of noise that made everything feel tense. It didn't help that I was alone in the house. My parents were away for the weekend, so I had the whole place to myself. At first, that felt like a relief. Peace, quiet, no one to answer to. But it wasn't easy to find peace when the storm outside was doing everything it could to shatter it. The wind howled, the rain battered the windows, and I could feel the pressure in the air building up. I was trying to focus on something, anything to distract me, but I couldn't shake the discomfort. Then, just as I was settling in, the lights flickered. That flicker, that quick warning before everything went completely dark. And then, nothing. The power was gone. Just like that. The entire house was swallowed up by the blackness. I couldn't even see my own hand in front of my face. It was so dark, I might as well have been blind. It felt like being buried alive without the weight. At first, I didn't care. I mean, it wasn't the end of the world, right? Just a blackout. Nothing to panic over. I'd dealt with blackouts before. Hell, I'd lived through worse, right? It'd be back on soon enough. But then, something felt different. Something in the air. I couldn't put my finger on it. But the storm, the darkness, it felt like it was more than just a power outage. Still, I pushed the thought aside. It was probably nothing. Just another storm. Just another blackout. But deep down, I knew there was something wrong. Something unsettling about the whole thing. And then it happened. A sudden sharp thud, the kind of noise that slices through everything, pulling you out of whatever daze you were in. My heart didn't just skip a beat. It froze. I didn't know what it was at first. Was it the wind? A tree branch slamming against the window. It should have been that, right? But no, it didn't sound like that. Not even close. This felt deliberate. Like something or someone had purposefully slammed into the glass. I sat up in bed, my pulse racing. My thoughts were spiraling, all over the place. I tried to listen again, straining in the darkness, hoping to catch any hint of a sound that might explain it. But there was nothing. Silence, again. Just the storm howling outside. But now the silence felt different, unnerving. Was it just the storm? Or had something or someone actually been standing out there? I didn't want to think about it, but I couldn't ignore it. I grabbed my phone, fumbled with the screen, and switched on the flashlight. The beam of light flickered as I stood up, moving cautiously towards the window. My heart was pounding in my chest, a dull thud in rhythm with my quickened breaths. I had to check. I didn't know why, but I had to. I reached the window, feeling the chill of the glass against my fingertips. Pressing my face up against it, my breath fogging up the cold surface, I looked out, and there he was. A man, standing just a few feet away, his face pressed to the window, staring directly at me. The light from my phone barely illuminated his features, but I could see enough to know it was real. I froze. How long had he been there? Had he been watching me for a while? What did he want? I couldn't move. My chest tightened, my throat dry. I couldn't breathe, couldn't look away. And just as quickly as the shock hit, another realization hit harder. The storm, the darkness, everything felt like it was closing in on me. How was he even out there? In the middle of that chaos? What the hell was going on? At first, I thought I imagined it. The wind, the storm, everything blending together into one giant blur of noise. But then I heard it again. A creak, the unmistakable sound of floorboards, old, warped, and familiar, groaning under weight. I could feel it in my bones, that heavy thud that seemed to echo through the air, even in the silence of the basement. Someone was upstairs. I held my breath, listening, my mind racing. The house felt too still, too quiet, except for those footsteps. They were slow, deliberate, moving with purpose across the floor above me. Were they outside? My eyes darted to the basement door. My only way out. No, they were definitely above me. In the house where no one was supposed to be. My heart began to pound, each beat echoing louder than the next. How long had they been there? Had they seen me? Was someone else in the house, walking around like they owned it? My thoughts scrambled, trying to piece together any logical explanation, but nothing made sense. I felt paralyzed. Not physically. No, my limbs were fine, but mentally, completely frozen. The panic swelled up, the pressure building, making it hard to think straight. I couldn't figure out what to do. Should I hide? Call for help? But I knew better than to make noise. The footsteps came closer, louder now. Were there more of them? How did they get inside? How did they know I was here? I couldn't even rationalize it. My brain kept asking questions that had no answers. And as I sat there, terrified and trapped, one question stood out more than all the others. Did they know where I was? Were they coming for me? The house felt like it was suffocating me, the walls closing in with every step above me. The panic crept in like a shadow, starting at the edges of my mind and slowly closing in. I had to get out. I had to reach someone. I needed help, but the phone was useless without a signal. The storm had taken the power out, and now it was like the world had disappeared, leaving me alone in the dark, suffocating silence. I reached for my phone, desperate, even though I knew it wouldn't work. The screen stayed black, mocking me with its emptiness. Nothing, no signal, no way to reach anyone. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. I was really stuck now, cut off from everything, completely alone in this basement, surrounded by nothing but a storm that wouldn't let up. The fear bubbled up, taking over my thoughts. What if I couldn't get out? What if I was trapped here, just waiting for someone to find me? I couldn't let that happen. I wouldn't let that happen. I grabbed the landline in a frantic attempt, knowing it was a long shot. My fingers trembled as I dialed, hoping against hope that maybe, just maybe, the phone would work. But the dial tone never came, just that eerie silence making the air feel even thicker. My heart pounded in my chest. How was that even possible? The phone had worked fine the last time I used it, but now, nothing. Just a dead line, not even a hint of sound. I felt a strange chill run through me. How could everything just stop working all at once? It didn't make sense. The house, the storm, it felt like everything was conspiring to keep me here, to keep me from leaving. And the worst part was, I had no idea who or what was out there. I couldn't stay still any longer. I had to move, I had to get out of here. I wasn't just going to sit here and wait for them to find me. The thought of them coming down those stairs made my skin crawl, but I didn't know where to go. I couldn't stay in the basement. I had to get upstairs to try and figure something out. The front door was an option, but I didn't even know if I'd make it there without being caught. I rose to my feet, my movements cautious and slow, trying to make as little noise as possible. I didn't even want to breathe too loudly. As I tiptoed toward the stairs, something shifted. A sound, distant but unmistakable, flashlights flicking on and off, muffled voices, the shuffling of feet. My stomach dropped. They were looking for me, and they were getting closer. I held my breath, not even daring to make a sound. My heart beat so loudly, it felt like it could give me away. My mind was racing. I can't let them find me. Not now. Not like this. I could hear the creak of footsteps upstairs. Closer, closer, and then, just when I thought I might make it to the stairs undetected, I heard it, a voice. Alex is downstairs. Go find him. My name. They knew my name. That hit me harder than anything else. My mind reeled. How did they know? I hadn't told anyone I was here. No one had come by. No one had seen me. How had they found me? More importantly, who were they? The hairs on the back of my neck stood up. I felt a cold wave of dread wash over me. Whoever they were, they weren't just looking for anyone. They were looking for me. Everything after that was a blur, just a series of actions without any real thought behind them. It's like my body just took over, instinctually trying to escape. My mind was racing, thoughts bouncing from one to the other, none of them making any sense. All I could focus on was getting out, getting away from whatever this was, from whoever was up there. I couldn't even tell you how I ended up at the window. My legs were moving, my hands reaching for anything, but it all felt like I was watching myself from a distance, unable to control what was happening. I didn't waste time thinking, not about the glass, not about the risk. I grabbed a stool, slammed it against the side of the window frame to give myself a boost. It wasn't graceful. I wasn't careful. I elbowed the glass hard enough to crack it. Pain exploded through my arm as shards of glass tore into my skin, but I barely even flinched. I had to get out. I didn't even think about the cut. I didn't care. I scrambled through the window, the rain hitting me like bullets as I tumbled into the wet, mud-soaked yard. I didn't stop to check if I was hurt, didn't even look back at the house. The only thing in my mind was putting distance between me and whatever had just happened. The rain mixed with the mud, making every step harder, slipping me further into the chaos. I ran until my legs burned, until I could barely see straight. It wasn't until I finally stumbled onto a road and got a signal that I was able to call the police. I wish I could say it was some kind of relief, but it wasn't. It was already too late. When the authorities arrived, the house was barely standing, ransacked, everything I'd left behind, gone. They took it all, everything that mattered. And whoever they were, gone. No trace, no faces, no answers. My parents were furious when they came back. They didn't get it. How could they? They were angry that I didn't stop it, angry that I let it happen. But how could I have stopped it? How could I have known? How? And most importantly, how did they even know I was there in the first place? I walked in the door well after midnight, exhaustion pressing down on me like a heavy weight. You know the kind where your body aches from a long day and your mind just feels fried. I wanted nothing more than to crack open a cold drink, kick my feet up, and forget the day had even happened. The silence of the house welcomed me, but there was something off about it. It was just too quiet. The kind of quiet that feels almost unnatural, like it's waiting for something. I shook it off, cracking the drink open and letting the cold rush hit my throat. I had been looking forward to this moment all day, but as I sank into the couch, it wasn't enough. I wasn't really enjoying the drink, not like I usually would. My mind was still racing, the stress of the day creeping back into my thoughts. But it didn't matter, right? I just needed to sit here for a minute, let the silence fill the space, and zone out. I closed my eyes, letting the quiet envelop me, hoping that maybe, just maybe, the stillness would drown out the chaos I'd left behind at work. But no matter how much I tried, it wasn't working. My mind kept spinning, replaying the frustration of the day, the never-ending stream of work, the people, the noise, and then I realized something. The house wasn't just quiet, it was too still, like the air was waiting for something. It made my skin crawl just a little, but I ignored it. I opened my eyes, trying to find something on TV, but nothing caught my attention. Just more silence, more waiting, just like everything else in my life. I thought maybe, just maybe, I could settle into the night. I was starting to relax a little, drink in hand, feet up, mind slowly unwinding. Then, right as I took a sip, the lights flickered. The annoying buzz of the lights struggling to stay on filled the room, then pop. Everything went black. It's happened before, sure. The power going out in this house is like a regular guest. But that noise, it always gets to me, that little pop just before the world goes dark. It's like the house is punishing me for wanting a moment of peace. It's such a small thing, really. But every time it happens, it feels like my body braces for something worse. I sat there in the dark for a moment, drink still in hand, trying to shake off the sudden unease. The power had cut out here before, probably just a surge or whatever. Nothing to get worked up about, but still something felt off. Maybe it was the stillness that followed, or the way the darkness seemed to swallow everything too quickly. It was almost deliberate, you know, like the house was holding its breath, waiting for me to notice that something wasn't right, something felt wrong. This time it wasn't just a random power issue. I couldn't explain it, but I could feel it, deep down in my gut. I stood up, trying to shake the weird vibe off. Maybe I'd just checked the breaker. It's a stupid thing to be worried about, but at that moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't just off with the power, it was off with everything. The house, the quiet, the way everything seemed to slow down as if it were waiting for something to happen. And that something, I didn't know yet, but I could feel it creeping closer. I figured I'd step outside, just to check if it was our house or the whole neighborhood that was out. I wasn't expecting much, maybe a few lights flickering in the distance, a couple of houses still running on power. I stepped out into the night, the cold air biting at my skin, and sure enough, one house a few doors down had their lights on, which meant it was just us. No surprise there. Our place always had these random power outages. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for the usual routine. No big deal, right? I'd go inside, reset the breaker, and everything would be fine. Simple. But when I grabbed the doorknob, it didn't turn. The handle was stuck. For a moment, I thought maybe I was just tired, that I was missing something obvious. I tried again, but no matter what, the door wouldn't budge. It was locked. That was strange. My wife and I had a habit of leaving the door unlocked, especially when I came home late, so it didn't make sense for it to be locked now. I stood there for a second, just frozen, trying to process it. The cold seeped into my bones, but I couldn't focus on that. My mind was running a mile a minute. Was she inside? Was she sleeping? Was something wrong? I called out, but nothing. Just the eerie silence that filled the air. I ran around to the back, hoping maybe the back door was open. But no. Same deal. Locked tight. This wasn't adding up. My thoughts were scrambled, trying to figure out why it was locked when it shouldn't have been. I tried again, banging on the door this time, louder, more desperate. It felt like the night itself was closing in on me, leaving me standing there, helpless, locked out, and unsure of what the hell was going on inside. The weight of that silence was starting to press down on me, heavy and suffocating. Okay, so the power went out. No big deal. Happens all the time, right? But this felt different. I can't even explain it. It's like everything shifted in that moment. I walked around to the side of the house, hoping maybe I could figure out what had gone wrong with the breaker. I wasn't expecting anything weird, but then I saw it. The hose. It was lying in the grass, sprawled out like it had been tossed aside. Now I know for a fact that hose was coiled up just earlier in the day. I had checked. Hell, I remembered coiling it up myself before I left for work. So why the hell was it lying there, all loose and sprawled out like that? My stomach dropped. It wasn't just a casual mess. This felt deliberate, like someone had been there messing around, and that's when it hit me like a freight train. Someone had cut the power. This wasn't some random glitch in the system, some faulty wiring. No, this was intentional. Someone had purposely yanked the plug, shutting everything down at just the right moment. I stood there for a second, trying to wrap my head around it. I wasn't just locked out of my own house. I was being played with. The realization hit me hard, like a slap across the face. Whoever did this was in control now. Not me. I was the one out in the cold, banging on doors trying to figure out what the hell was going on. I could feel the panic starting to creep in, like ice crawling up my spine. I could almost hear the person behind it all watching from the shadows, knowing exactly what they were doing. I kept thinking, what the hell were they after? Was my wife okay? Were they already inside? The questions kept swirling, each one worse than the last, and I couldn't even answer any of them. I didn't know what I was hoping to see when I ran over to the window, but it wasn't this. I think a part of me thought maybe it was all in my head, just some weird coincidence. But when I finally saw the flashlights, those erratic, frantic movements in the dark, I knew instantly. It wasn't a mistake. There were people in my house. 2 flashlights, both swinging wildly through the rooms. They weren't being careful or quiet, they were rummaging through our stuff like they owned the place. My heart stopped. For a moment it was like everything went still. The world outside my window didn't matter anymore. I could hear nothing but the frantic beat of my own heart, the rush of blood in my ears. This was real. They were in there. I wasn't just locked out in the cold. I was watching my own life get torn apart from the outside. The thoughts flooded in fast. I should have been inside with my wife. She was in there alone, vulnerable, and I was standing out here, useless. What if they heard me banging on the door earlier? What if they were already onto me? I could feel the heat of anger and panic rising in my chest, but I couldn't let it overwhelm me. I had to do something, anything. I turned, reaching for my pocket, only to realize in the worst possible way that I had left my phone on the damn couch. I cursed under my breath, the words barely escaping my lips before I was already moving. I needed to call the police. I needed to do something, but there was no time to think. My mind was spinning in circles, and the longer I stood there, the more it hit me. I was powerless. I was outside, watching them take everything, and I couldn't do a damn thing. What could I do? The fear gnawed at me as the minutes ticked by. I couldn't shake the thought of her. My wife, alone in that house, vulnerable to whatever was happening inside. I was outside, powerless, and the panic hit me like a wave. I don't know if it was the sheer terror of seeing strangers go through our things or the thought of her, unprotected, but something snapped in me. I couldn't just stand there, frozen in fear, not when she might be in danger. I knew I had to get help, but leaving her there, it didn't feel like an option. I ran back toward the yard, my heart hammering against my chest. Desperation drove me to grab rocks from the corner of the yard. I didn't think, I just threw them hard at the bedroom window. The sound of impact was sharp, echoing through the cold night, but it didn't feel like enough. The rocks bounced off the window, barely making a dent, but I didn't care. I needed to get her attention, to make sure she was awake. She had to know what was happening. I threw another one, then another. There was no plan. I just kept doing it. After the third rock, I finally saw the curtains stir, and then the window creaked open. Her face, pale and tired, appeared in the dim light. But the moment wasn't reassuring. There was no time for explanations or comfort. The words tumbled out of my mouth in a rush. Hide, get in the closet. Now, there wasn't any time for questions or anything else. I needed her to listen, to move, to get out of sight. That was all that mattered. I turned away, my mind still racing. The fear, the guilt, it was overwhelming. I guess I thought telling her to hide would be enough. But was it? Maybe I should have stayed and fought, should have done more, but I didn't. I just left. I didn't even think twice when I found myself running up to his door. It was one of those moments where instinct takes over, and logic flies out the window. I was desperate, frantic. I needed a phone, needed to call the cops, to get help. Maybe I wasn't thinking straight, but in that moment, I thought the neighbor would be my lifeline. When he opened the door, it was almost too quick. Like he'd been waiting for me. His reaction wasn't normal. He didn't even blink when I spilled out what was happening about the power outage, the strangers inside my house. There was something about his face, his calmness. It was unsettling. He just stood there, silent for a moment, looking at me with these cold, calculating eyes. I couldn't put my finger on it, but something was off, way off. I didn't even care about that. All I cared about was getting the phone in my hands. I could hear the sirens in my head, but it felt like a lifetime before they'd reach me. I told him everything again, rushing through the words, but still, he stood there, unnervingly calm. Too calm. I looked into his eyes as he stared back at me. He wasn't shocked. He wasn't worried. He was interested, though. Way too interested. The questions he asked were so strange, so specific, like he knew something I didn't, like he was expecting this. I was so wired on adrenaline. My brain wasn't processing everything correctly, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being manipulated. Or maybe I was just losing it, running on fear and confusion. I needed to call for help, but his gaze kept drawing me in, making me question everything I thought I knew. Was I imagining things? Was this some twisted coincidence, or was he involved? My hand hovered over the doorframe, my mind racing, and I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold air. I couldn't trust anyone anymore. Was he playing me, or was I just losing my grip? You get used to the rhythm of a place when you work nights. There's this low, steady hum that most people don't even notice. Fluorescents buzzing, machines idling, distant creaks settling into background noise. It becomes part of the routine, something your brain learns to tune out until it's not there anymore. That night at the Fern Ridge shipping facility, the change didn't come as a flicker or a dimming glow like it had during past storms. It just stopped. 1 second I was walking the eastern aisle doing my usual sweep, and the next it was pitch black. No humming lights, no faint green glow from the emergency strips, nothing, just the kind of dark that swallows everything. My flashlight wasn't even in my hand yet. I had to feel around for it on my belt like I'd forgotten how my own body worked for a second. But what really set me off wasn't just the blackout, it was the silence that came with it. The radio clipped to my hip gave this weird little pop, like the speakers coughed, and then it went dead. No static, no click, just quiet, that kind of quiet that feels too thick to be natural. I started retracing my steps, thinking maybe I missed someone in the loading bay or break room, but the place felt empty in a way it usually didn't. I couldn't remember the last time I'd seen another person that shift, which might sound normal for night work, but it had been too long. Like time-skipping long. I kept telling myself it was just the storm knocking stuff out again. But something about this blackout wasn't just technical, it felt intentional. Like it wanted to happen exactly this way. I just couldn't figure out why. I remember thinking I should have been relieved when I saw that other beam of light cut through the darkness, because at least it meant I wasn't alone in this blackout. But the second I saw it, something felt off. It wasn't my light, I knew that instantly. The angle was wrong, too low to be mounted anywhere, too smooth to be a flickering bulb. It moved like someone holding it, walking with purpose. It swept from one side of the aisle to the other in this slow, methodical rhythm. Not rushed, not random, just too precise. Like whoever had it knew exactly where they were going, and that was the part that bothered me. I waited where I was, figuring they'd see my beam too and head my way. That's what anyone else would have done. But instead, it just rounded the end of the aisle and vanished. No footsteps, no shifting boxes, not even a door creak. Just gone. My legs moved before I really had time to think it through. I followed, because that's what instinct does in a place like that. You see another human sign, and your brain clings to it. But when I turned that corner, nothing. Just rows of shelving stretching into the dark, all still. The beam I'd seen was completely gone, like it never existed. That kind of silence isn't normal in a warehouse. There's always something, vent rattles, forklift beeps, some distant hum. But this was dead quiet, and it wasn't the good kind. It felt like the kind of quiet you walk into just after something happens, like you missed it by seconds, and whatever it was might still be around, watching. I wasn't planning to head toward Dock 6. I only did because the air felt heavier that way, like walking into a room where someone had just been arguing, except there was no one there. Just this strange shift in pressure, and a smell I couldn't place right away. Not mildew, not oil, something sharper. Metallic, maybe. Something that made my mouth taste wrong. That's when I saw the footprints. They weren't dusty scuffs or boot marks like I was used to seeing. These were wet, not just damp-soaked, clear outlines of a work boot, heel to toe, pressed into the smooth concrete like someone had stepped out of a river. But everything else around them was dry. Bone dry. No puddles, no drip trail from a leak above, and we hadn't had rain in days. No reason for that kind of wet to be inside. They led in from the loading bay doors, but that's the thing, they didn't come from outside. The prints started inside the threshold. There wasn't a trail coming in across the lot. No smudges leading up to the door. It was like whoever made them had just appeared there, like they were already in the building and then walked out of the dark. I followed the trail, maybe 4 or 5 steps in, before I felt something tighten in my chest. I wasn't thinking clearly. I just knew I didn't want to know where they led. It wasn't just eerie, it was wrong. Like the warehouse itself had swallowed something and left only the footprints behind. I kept looking over my shoulder for the next hour, even when I wasn't near Dock 6, because if those prints started in the middle of the building, it meant I was already too late to avoid whoever made them. I didn't even notice it at first. I was moving slower by then, conserving battery, hugging walls. The blackout had stretched long past anything normal, and I'd stopped expecting the lights to come back on. Near the loading cage, I swept my beam low, just checking my path like I'd been doing every 5 steps. That's when the light caught something sitting on top of a roll of shrink wrap, angled just right to reflect back at me. It was my flashlight, not the one I was holding. The other one, the one I kept in my locker, tucked behind my spare jacket with the cracked zipper. I knew it was mine the second I saw it. The tape on the grip, still curling at the edges. The faded KJ I'd scratched in with a paperclip after someone kept grabbing the wrong gear during shift changes. I hadn't touched that thing in weeks, and I hadn't been to my locker since before the lights went. So what was it doing here, sitting upright, like someone had placed it carefully, like someone wanted it noticed? I don't know what unsettled me more, that someone had gone through my stuff or that they knew exactly where to leave it so I'd find it. It didn't feel random. It felt precise, like a move in a game I didn't know I was playing. I scanned around, expecting to catch movement, some blur in the shadows, but there was nothing, just the flashlight waiting for me like it was part of some trail. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it and felt this deep unease sink in because it meant someone else was thinking steps ahead, watching me, maybe even tracking me, and I didn't like what that meant. Not one bit. I wasn't sure when I first heard it. I thought it might have been the echo of my own mind playing tricks on me, like a buzz in your ear when you're trying to concentrate. But then I realized, no, these weren't my thoughts. These were voices. Low, indistinct, but definitely there. It took me a second to pin it down past aisle 12, a little to my left. Too faint to catch words, but distinct enough to know they weren't coming from my own head. They bounced off the walls and felt too real to ignore. 2 voices, maybe? It was hard to say. One sounded like it was further away, the other closer. They weren't talking loud enough to make sense of, just murmurs. A rhythm to them though, like someone was trying to stay quiet, like they didn't want to be heard. But they weren't hiding the way I was. They were talking on purpose, that much was clear. I froze. It's a weird thing to freeze when you're already alone in a place like this, but I did. I stopped breathing for a moment, trying to focus on the noise, listening for anything, a break in the murmur that would make it real, something I could identify. It didn't come, it just stopped. Like someone snapped their fingers, and the voices were gone. The silence hit hard, almost suffocating. The kind that feels like it's too deep, like the space around you just swallowed the sound whole. I stood there, longer than I want to admit, listening for something, anything, to tell me that I hadn't imagined it. But nothing came. No more voices. Just a thick, oppressive quiet that felt like it was pressing in from all sides. I kept hoping I'd hear it again, but I didn't. And then again, maybe I didn't want to. I had passed the circuit panel twice already. I knew that area like the back of my hand. The dark, cluttered corner by the loading dock, where nothing ever changed. I had glanced at it just a few minutes before, on my way down the aisle. Empty, not a single tool out of place. But when I came back, shaking, my flashlight flickering nervously in my grip, there they were. A box cutter. Work gloves. Lying perfectly beside it. They hadn't been there before. I'm sure of it. I would have noticed something as out of place as that. The tools looked like they were left in a hurry, but whoever had been there hadn't bothered to pick them up, hadn't returned. It was as if they just stepped away mid-task. I bent down without thinking, my fingers brushing the handle of the box cutter. There was a strange pull to it, like I was being drawn into something I shouldn't be, and that's when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of something shifting behind me, gravel scraping against concrete. A footstep, slow, deliberate. It wasn't the usual warehouse noise. This was different. Closer, too close. I didn't turn around. The feeling of someone standing right there, just behind me, was too much. I could feel it pressing on me, heavy and close, even though I couldn't see it. My body reacted before my brain could catch up. I moved fast. I didn't even look back to see if anyone was there. I just ran. The air around me felt thick with something I couldn't explain, like the weight of a stare I couldn't shake off. But when I stopped and turned, there was nothing. No one, just the empty aisles and the soft hum of the building's silence. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, that someone was still there, watching, waiting for me to make the next move. I don't know why I hit the panic button, but I did. I locked myself in the front office, crouching down behind the file cabinets with my back pressed against the cool metal. The flashlight I had been using had long since died, and I couldn't bring myself to turn it back on even if it worked. The silence was too thick, and every creak of the building felt like it was echoing through my skull. My heart was hammering in my chest, my mind racing. Was I just paranoid, or had something really gone wrong? The police arrived fast. I remember the flashing lights cutting through the front windows, casting long shadows across the room. They were here finally. I had to be safe now, but when they got inside and started searching, I felt a cold sinking in my stomach. They found nothing. No sign of anyone. No trace of whoever or whatever had been in the building with me. Security footage was just blacked out. No image, no glitch, just pure darkness where everything should have been visible. I tried to explain what had happened, what I'd seen, but the words came out like they didn't make sense. They asked if I'd been hallucinating. Had I been alone for too long? Maybe I was exhausted. Maybe it was just stress from the isolation. I didn't argue. I didn't correct them. I just nodded, like I was following some script I wasn't in control of. They told me to go home, that they'd continue the search, that I should get some rest. But as I walked out of there, my mind was spinning. I knew something was wrong. Deep down I knew it, but I also knew I wasn't coming back. Not for another solo shift. Whatever happened that night, whatever was lurking in those shadows, it wasn't just an accident. And maybe that's the worst part. Not knowing. Was it personal? Was it random? I'm still not sure, and I don't know if I'll ever be. But one thing's for sure, if the police couldn't help, maybe they weren't supposed to. Maybe they were part of it all along.